Hi, this is Suresh, and today I want to talk about fitness. I haven't had a video on fitness in a while, specifically about heart rate or pulse, right? And the key important thing about heart rate is there are several factors that I want to talk about. One is the minimum heart rate, the other one is a maximum heart rate or theoretical maximum heart rate. The other one is a heart rate recovery. That's an important fact too. And the fourth aspect I want to talk about heart rate after COVID. Uh, the heart rate after COVID is something that I went through, and I recently saw a video by cardiologists talking about how that's important to monitor. So let me first start off with we all have heart rates or pulses, and a heart rate to me it's very similar to an RPM, an engine. The faster or the more effort you put in, your heart rate goes up. So when you're just walking, your heart rate might be very low, but when you start jogging and running, your heart rate keeps going up. That's just normal. So what's a resting heart rate or the minimum heart rate? Typical minimum heart rates anyway go from 60 to 90 beats per minute. That's considered normal. There are people who have 40 beats per minute. There are people who may have up to 90 beats per minute. Generally speaking, a healthy person, let's for example, my heart rate right now, it's in the upper 50s, resting heart rate. It probably was higher when I was not as fit. So as the fitness level improves, what's generally considered is that your resting heart rate keeps going down. So it's a good thing to have a lower heart rate, generally speaking, from a fitness standpoint. Now, what's your maximum heart rate or a peak heart rate? Now, there are published information. The theoretical number is generally 220 minus your age. So let's say you're a 50-year-old. So it's 220 minus 50, and it's 170 beats per minute is your maximum heart rate. Now, again, this is just a guideline. It isn't the same for everybody. Every individual is different. And, because I know that I've measured it, many of my friends who do these things, they have different numbers in terms of peak. Okay. Now, this is a peak is when you're putting in maximum effort and your heart rate reaches at that level. And that's usually it's done in a lab, but if you run or if you do other strenuous exercises, you generally have an idea what your peak heart rate is. Mine is typically around 180 beats per minute. That's how much I've measured. When I'm running with all my intensity, it's at 180 beats per minute. So think about this. The window of operation is from 60 beats per minute to, let's say, 180. In my case, it could be 170 for some people, could be higher for some others. So that's your operating range, okay? So, if you think about it, when you start off, it's right there and it goes up to there. Now, the important thing is you don't want your heart rate rising up fast, right? As you go through every step, increasing intensity, your heart rate is supposed to go up gradually towards that point. That makes sense, right? Again, the heart rate recovery is another important factor which cardiologists use. Apparently, an article by Cleveland Clinic, I saw the typical, what that is recovery means when you are after your strenuous exercise, your peak, let's say you hit a heart rate of 160, and they measure the heart rate after you're done exercising. So let's say a minute after you're done, your heart rate is supposed to drop around 18 beats per minute or 20 beats per minute. Okay, so that's a number they look for in terms of if your heart is functioning okay. So your heart rate is supposed to drop once you stop that strenuous exercise. Makes sense, right? It's very commonsensical, but again, the cardiologists say they have some numbers they use to see if your heart is functioning properly. The thing about COVID, when I saw a recent video about COVID and cardiologists talking about sudden peaks in heart rate, for people after COVID when you do exercise. And I noticed this specific thing because right after I got COVID, it was very mild COVID. I was done in 2 days. I had small fever. I really didn't have any lung issues that I could, breathing issues. So I thought it was okay, right? So within a week, I was on the treadmill. I was on the elliptical doing some strenuous exercise. And I was trying to see, I knew I had to take it slowly. So I was taking it slowly. But then a day later, I thought, okay, a couple of days later, I thought, let me push it, right? So when I started pushing it, my heart rate went up so fast that it went up to 200 beats per minute. I knew right away I had to stop because I knew something wasn't right because I had data. I've been collecting data on my heart rate for maybe 4 or 5 years before that, from 2016 onwards. So this was in 2021, and I knew something wasn't right because it didn't fit the pattern of how the heart rate should rise for that intense of an exercise. I knew it should be around 150. Instead, it was around 200, closing in on 200. So I shut it down right away. I went back to a regimen where I was slowly getting back to it. So make sure my heart was functioning, in a much more normal range of heart rate, right? So I was just trying to stick at 130 beats per minute, not go higher than that. Really low intensity workouts for about a month. And maybe in a month, I was able to start going back up. And in 2022, in summer of 2022, I was perfectly fine. I ran a half marathon. I set a personal best and all that kind of stuff. So again, I think what I'm trying to tell you is it's important to have a smartwatch. One of these things, if you to measure your heart rate, to measure all other parameters. If you're working out, if intensely working out, I'm sure you already have one. Even those who don't do intense workouts, who are probably doing things at home, like carrying stuff up the stairs, heavy things, or shoveling snow, you probably need to measure your heart rate, just to make sure these things, like, post-COVID or post other infection, these things don't happen. Now, typically when you have infections, heart rate could go up. You drink too much caffeine, heart rate could go up. You don't get good night's sleep, it could go up. So there are other factors why heart rate could be higher, but the sudden shoot up of heart rate is very rare. Again, thank you for listening. Hope to bring you more videos on fitness as in the future. Thank you.